I'm sorry, are you saying that Sweden is a socialist country? I don't... well, I don't know that it is. I mean, in this country, more than half of all spending is done by the government. Nearly half the nation's income is taken by the government. This is a pretty socialist country, to be perfectly honest. And it's absolutely amazing, it seems to me, and the same was true in Sweden, as to how resilient the market is when it's faced with those kind of problems, and that kind of oppressive nature of the state. Sweden obviously had a much more advanced welfare state than we did, and very high taxes to support it, which they've now fundamentally given up on. So they're coming to where we are. So I don't think you should necessarily think of Sweden as being a socialist paradise. It's a lot better than it was, I have to say. Firstly, you've had a Labour government for the last 12 years, so okay, don't blame me, blame them. You know. But secondly, you know, you look at these so-called Gini coefficients, and the difference between them in different countries is tiny. And you know, the difference, you know, you say less equality, it's tiny. It's absolutely tiny. And if you want real inequality, I mean, what you have is a large welfare state. And then you find it soon becomes unaffordable. So you have to keep your welfare beneficiaries on extremely low benefits while the rest of us are out there making money. And again, you know, look at the big picture here. You know, look at the whole world. Look at, look at China and India, where they're now coming onto into the world trading system. I think that's hugely beneficial for equality, because in China you had a few fat old guys in Beijing who ran everything, right? And you know, a few people in the cities, yeah, and then the rest of the population, like 750 million, were out there in abject poverty, appalling poverty. And that is now changing. It's changing extremely fast. And these folk are rising up, not quickly enough for me, but you know, and you see there's social tensions when you try and do it and all the rest of it. But I think that is the most fabulous thing. And those people are coming up to the level of the rich. And it's because you've got a market doing that. Tell me about government failure, which is even worse, let me tell you. I think it has to enforce the general rules of the market, property, contract, things like that. I don't think it has to do very much else. Market, I don't know. As I say, I can see government failure all around me. Market failure is much more difficult to assess. You know, look at the products which have really, which we're all happy with and which have grown and improved. You know, computers and iPhones and mobile phones and washing machines and TVs and radios and cars and all of these sorts of things. These are all produced by the market. They're all produced by entrepreneurs. Look at all the things that we think are dismal and miserable, like schools and healthcare and the welfare system. These are things which are produced by government. So I think actually the role for government in the free market economy is to butt out. There is a difference between freedom and power. I'm free to go for a fortnight in the Bahamas, but I don't have the financial power to do that, I'm afraid. So that is a difference. But fine, you know, I mean, I'm free to go to the moon, but again, you know, I don't actually have the technology to do it. So there are limitations to our lives, and that's what economics is all about. And yes, you're absolutely right, that some people will not be able to afford a Rolls Royce. Well, you know, that's life. But that is the outcome of if you like, a previous mechanism, a previous sort of election, really, that if people produce goods that lots and lots and lots of other folk want and are prepared to pay for very handsomely, then, and if they do that well, and it's by no means certain that they will, but you know, I've known lots of inventors who produce fantastic products and just not made any money out of it at all because they're useless business people. But if somebody does make money out of their invention, their hard work, their enterprise, their growing up capital and all the rest of it, then they can, they can afford the Rolls Royce, they can afford the holiday in the Bahamas. And that's the way the system works. And it works in order to try and induce people to do that, because we want people to spread this benefit around the planet. The closest thing that my family ever had to a celebrity was my grandfather, who was a gamekeeper. And he trained dogs, trained gun dogs. And he appeared on the front cover, didn't mention his name, but he was on the front cover, big picture of him with a gun dog, or front cover of Picture Post in 1947. And I was looking through this magazine, and I was looking at the advertisements. And the advertisements were, there was peas, and then there was something that was a shampoo to the stars, and then there were, various other advertisements from firms that no longer exist. And indeed, often for products that no longer exist. What has happened is not that the firms who were there at the time got bigger and bigger and bigger, as Marx would tell you. On the contrary, many of them were completely wiped out by the competition. Competition from abroad, competition at home. And all sorts of cheap imports, but all sorts of innovations at home too. As you grow bigger, there are costs. There are economies of scale, but there are also diseconomies of scale. If you ever form a business, this is the most useful advice I can give you, right? If you ever start a business, right, if you've got about 5 or 6 of you, it's easy. 12, it gets a bit difficult. 20, you've got a real problem, because you've got to build systems to communicate with everybody. If you've got 5 or 7 people in the room, everybody knows what's going on. You don't need to send memos to everybody else and all this sort of stuff. If you've got 20, you do. And it's a completely different thing. And there is a cost to that. So it means that you're not producing as efficiently as maybe the small firm is. So yes, there are gains because you've got a bigger enterprise, and you've bigger shop, bigger factory, whatever it is. And yes, there are gains from that. But there are also problems in the other direction as well. And you're always, however big you are always at the risk of some small innovator coming in and just pinching a part of your market, which then grows and grows and grows, and you find you've got less and less.